Everything you perceive every single day of your life is basically just a dance of shadows. But what actually happens when you turn around? Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're going to peel back the chaotic, noisy layers of everyday duality to reveal the silent, unmanifested state of consciousness. We're exploring the metaphysics of the void and figuring out exactly what remains when absolutely everything else falls away.
So, let's dive right into this fundamental mystery of existence. Most of us, we go through life just reacting to whatever is right in front of us. Our jobs, our stress, the physical objects we bump into. But ancient philosophers, mystics, and even modern thinkers have all pointed toward this profound secret. The reality we're seeing? It's just a projection. Today, we're going to strip away those illusions of reality and see what happens when you finally stare directly into the source of the light.
To really get this, we have to travel back to ancient Greece. You've probably heard of Plato's famous allegory of the cave. It's this thought experiment where humans are chained up in a dark cave from childhood, facing a blank wall with a fire rowing behind them. People walk in front of that fire holding various objects, and the prisoners, well, they only see the shadows cast on the wall. And because they've never known anything else, they just passively accept those projected shadows as their ultimate reality. They name the shadows, they study them, they build their entire lives around them. But it's an illusion. Act 1, the prison of projections.
Now, to really understand this prison of our rendered ego, let's look at ancient traditions far outside of Greece. The Tibetan Book of the Dead, or the Bardo Photo, offers this radically different take on the nature of our consciousness. Unlike Western traditions that often see the afterlife as a final judgment, the Tibetans teach that your ultimate spiritual climax doesn't actually happen in the middle of your life. It happens at the exact moment of physical dissolution. Death is reframed here. It's not an end, it's literally the highest initiatory opportunity a human being can experience. The word bardo itself just means between two. It's the intermediate state.
What is so fascinating about this is how perfectly it mirrors Plato's cave. When the body dies, the raw, unmodified mind is suddenly completely exposed. The text describes consciousness being confronted by these spectacular visions of peaceful and wrathful deities. But here is the massive secret of the bardo. Absolutely none of these external entities exist. They aren't real. They're nothing more than our own mental projections, totally shaped by our subconscious thoughts, our deepest fears, and our past karma. Just like those shadows on Plato's wall, the unawakened mind gets dragged right back down into illusion simply because it believes the projections are real.
And this brilliant realization points us to the ultimate goal. True liberation requires recognizing these projections for exactly what they are and seeing the underlying reality beneath them. The Tibetans call this the clear light of the void. It's this mind-bending realization that your own intellect, which might seem empty, is actually unobstructed, shining, and thrilling. It is the creative ground floor of all reality. If you can just recognize this light, the actual projector instead of the movie, you achieve perfect enlightenment.
Act 2, reconciling the dualities. So, the big question is, how do we collapse this boundary between our subjective minds on the inside and the objective world on the outside? Modern philosophy gives us a really incredible lens for this through a theory called analytic non-dualism. This framework completely rejects the idea of a separate, mind-independent objective universe. Instead of saying, there's a physical world out there and a mind in here looking at it, analytic non-dualism argues that reality is fundamentally made up of momentary experiences. The world you experience directly within your subjectivity, that is as real as it gets. The dualism between world and mind is a myth. The experience literally is the reality. Now, this very modern academic theory has some surprisingly deep esoteric roots. The ancient Hermetic principle of polarity perfectly echoes this exact idea. As it's written in the Kybalion, everything has its pair of opposites, but those opposites are actually identical in nature. They just differ in degree. Think about it. Hot and cold aren't different things. They are just different degrees of temperature on the same thermometer. In that exact same way, the subjective mind and the objective world are not two separate things at all. They are just two ends of the exact same spectrum of reality. By mapping out these polarities side by side, we can see how Hermetic philosophy views consciousness through what they call mental gender. On the left, we've got the feminine principle, the subjective, subconscious, passive mind. We can correlate this to the zero, pure unmanifested potential. And on the right, we have the masculine principle, the objective, conscious, active mind, the one, or physical manifestation. But remember, these aren't separated entities fighting each other. They work in absolute unison to render the reality you experience every day. Because these two sides exist on a single, continuous spectrum, you are not meant to just be a helpless victim to them. True mastery in Hermeticism involves using your awareness of this spectrum to transmute undesirable mental states into worthy ones. By deeply understanding the principle of polarity, you suddenly have the power to shift your own mental polarity. You achieve this universal reconciliation of opposites, which basically means you stop being enslaved by the shadows on the wall and you finally start mastering your own conscious experience.
Act 3. The luminous void.
Okay, so what actually happens when we push all the way to the side of the unmanifested state? In the 0-1 framework, we call this state 0. It is the unknowable source. But we have to be super careful with our words here. State 0 is not some empty, dead nothingness. Fundamentally, the ultimate 0 is eternal, perfect order. It is pure, fast-vibrating energy and consciousness. It's the profound stillness of the universe where time doesn't even exist. It is completely full of limitless potential, just waiting before it takes a fixed physical form. This beautiful enso, drawn in a single, spontaneous sweep of black ink, was actually sent on an announcement card by Alan Watts' wife, Jano, after his passing, and it acts as a completely perfect visual metaphor for the 0. Look at it. The circle is empty in the middle, yet it encompasses absolutely everything. It represents pure emptiness that paradoxically contains infinite potential. It is the Tao, operating through total spontaneous effortlessness.
So the practical question is, how do we actually experience this 0 state right now, while we're still alive? The great philosopher Alan Watts taught that we can access this receptive Tao by stripping away our constant, exhausting need to define and categorize everything. He used to guide his students to listen to spontaneous sounds, a bird calling, flowing water, or even his own voice just uttering absolute nonsense syllables to mess with them. He told them to do this without attaching any cognitive labels or moralistic judgments. When you just let the vibration play upon your ears without trying to intellectually understand it, you are tapping directly into that unrendered, unmanifested source.
And this connects us directly back to the Tibetan clear light we discussed earlier. The clear light represents a state of perfect, unmanifested consciousness, entirely free from the rendered illusions of reality. It's the raw, naked, unmodified mind. If you can maintain the kind of pure, label-free awareness that Alan Watts described, you can recognize this clear light unclouded by your own karma. And by recognizing it, you merge instantly with the highest truth, what Buddhists call the Dharmakaya, and you completely break this cycle of unconscious projection.
Act 4. The sovereign bridge.
Now, as amazing as the void sounds, we can't just float in it forever, right? We have lives to live. If the 0 is the void of pure potential, the 1 is the physical manifestation of that potential. State 1 is matter. It is knowing, it's articulated reality. It's the world of your career, your relationships, your physical body, and literally the chair you're sitting in right now. The goal isn't to destroy state 1. The goal is to interact with it properly. To avoid being trapped as a passive prisoner of state 1, like those chained people in Plato's cave, you have to cultivate something called understanding. In the 0-0 framework, understanding is your active translation mechanism. It is the vital bridge that mediates the flow between the unmanifested potential of the 0 and the articulated, fixed reality of the 1. This means you get to step into the role of the sovereign bridge. You are actively condensing the infinite, unstructured, totally nonverbal data of the source directly into your communicable everyday life. You are taking the inspiration, the stillness, and the raw energy of the 0 and using your own conscious will to render it into the 1. You are literally the translation engine. And because you are that translation engine, you are the architect of your own experience. Because reality is fundamentally mental and energetic, and the universe itself is an infinite living mind. You have immense agency. By turning your attention inward to the I am, you realize you're an active co-creator. You are fully capable of mastering the mental plane by reconciling the dualities within yourself. You don't just endure reality anymore. You shape it. Which brings us full circle. The true goal of this explainer is to show you that escaping Plato's cave isn't about abandoning the physical world and refusing to ever look at a shadow again. It's about returning to the cave, walking among the rendered world, but doing it with the profound, active awareness of the light. You can play the game of life, absolutely, but you now know exactly how the game is projected. You never lose your connection to the unmanifested source. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to carry with you as you co-create your reality today. If reality is a projection of the mind, and you hold the power to shift your polarity, what is one shadow or label you are choosing to let go of right now? Take a moment, tap into the silent potential of the zero, and step forward as the sovereign architect of your own world. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.